He's the commissioner of the National Hockey League. Season stopped on March 12th. The NHL will now move to a 2014 conference-based postseason format that was approved by the National Hockey League Players Association last Friday. And the commissioner joins us now. Commissioner, thank you for joining us. Why did you think going into the playoffs and that playoff format was the right move?
Well, first of all, I want to know where I can buy that bobblehead of you playing hockey. And secondly, and more importantly, thanks for having me. And I hope you and all your viewers and listeners and all your colleagues are well and staying safe. We have extraordinary competitive balance. Our regular season races to the playoffs go down to the wires with lots of teams in contention. And if you look at the standings as of March 12th, when we took the pause, there were a lot of clubs on the bubble. And we thought it was only fair, since we couldn't complete the regular season. We were 189 games away from completing the regular season, that we had to give those teams a chance that might very well have made the playoffs if we had been able to conclude the regular season. And instead of concluding the regular season when we came back, we were also mindful of the fact that the players are going to have to be away from home, and we didn't want to have that experience to be prolonged any longer than really necessary.
I saw where about 17% of the NHL are players from outside of North America. What's the biggest concern with getting them into the States, tested, and just the safety precautions?
Well, actually, we have more. It's probably closer to 25% of our players are from outside of North America, but 17% of our players right now are in locations outside of North America, and we have to bring them back. Obviously, there are immigration issues, although since they all have valid visas, that shouldn't be an issue. The bigger issue is the fact that they're going to have to quarantine for a couple of weeks. And we're going to, when we open our training facilities, which we hope to do the first week of June, they're going to be subject to some testing. As we move to the training camp phase, there'll be more testing. And then when we get to the actual playing stage, we're being told by our medical people, who are giving us all the advice on this and whose advice we're following, players, if they're not being tested every day, they're going to be tested at least every other day.
But is this the NHL doing the testing, or will it be individual teams doing the testing?
Well, actually, it'll be individual teams in the training camp and training facilities phase, although we have a backup for clubs that can't arrange to do it locally. And any of the tests we're doing, whether it's the clubs, the backup, or what we're going to do when we're actually playing the competition, we're not going to do anything that would interfere with the medical needs that may be required for testing. And we're being told by the experts that by the summer there'll be such an abundance of testing, our needs will really be infinitesimal relative to what will be available.
Could the format of 24 teams in the playoffs stay after this season?
No, we like what we have. Our regular season puts teams in the playoffs virtually all season. We love the way the regular season plays out. Every game's meaningful. Our regular playoffs of 16 teams hits just the right note. The competition is the entertainment value, the excitement, the passion couldn't be better. And so we're doing something extraordinary in response to an extraordinary time.
Fans in the stands, any possibility with that?
That's something we're not going to have any control over. Everything we're doing is going to be subject to the guidance and requirements of what the medical people tell us and what the governmental leaders are telling us at all levels, whether it's federal, state, or local. And if they tell us we can have fans, then obviously nothing would make us happier. But I think everybody should assume that as we play this out over the summer and into the fall, it's probably most unlikely that there'll be fans in the buildings, not because we wouldn't want them, but it's a safety, it's a health issue, and we're listening to the experts.
I know you have to look at the worst case scenario. What if a player tests positive in the middle of the playoffs? Then what?
Well, that's a question I've been getting a lot for obvious reasons. The medical people are telling us one test would require that player to be isolated, and you don't need an overreaction. If you have an outbreak, that's a completely different story. What constitutes an outbreak, what procedures we need to follow, that is something that the medical people are going to tell us. That's not a judgment that I'm going to make saying, well, just keep playing. We'll be doing what the medical people tell us is appropriate under the circumstances.
How often do you consult with government officials, or did
We're,
you?
we're in regular dialogue, whether it's the Prime Minister of Canada or some of his ministers or the President of the United States or governors or premiers or mayors. We're hearing from lots of them, in part because we want to get squared away on the ability of getting players in and out of the countries. And then we have a lot of communities that are lobbying to be one of the two hubs where we're going to play this out. Now, we, as I think people have heard, have 9 or 10 places under consideration, all of which we think can do this for us. We're not making a decision yet because we want to do this in real time when we have to, because the information flow based on the state of everything that's going on is changing. This isn't a decision in terms of which location that I have to make probably for another 3 to 4 weeks. At that point, I'm going to want to see what the state of COVID-19 is in the communities we're considering, because obviously we'd reduce the risk of any of our personnel getting infected if we're in a place that has very little COVID, the availability of testing, and the issues relative to moving personnel across the border, either to or from Canada, from the United States. So that's why we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. We think it's better to have a lot of options so that at the time we have to make a decision, we can make the best decision possible.
Talking to the NHL Commissioner, Gary Bettman. I remember doing an interview with Pete Rozelle, David Stern, Peter Ubroth, and Larry Ziegler. And at the time, everybody was commissioners. He was the president. When did they decide that you were going to be a commissioner instead of the president of the National Hockey League?
Actually, in addition to being president as opposed to commissioner, I think his name was John, not Larry.
Oh, John Ziegler.
but
I think that might be a golfer, Larry Ziegler.
When I was hired to come join the NHL, the view was there were lots of things that needed to be done to modernize the way the league was operating at the time, and part of my arrangement was I was going to be a commissioner consistent with what the other 3 major leagues were doing as part of moving the league forward. And my powers got a little increased. And it was really to modernize the structure of how we were conducting ourselves.
It sounds more impressive, though, I think, commissioner than president.
It is what it's a word, but, rose by any other name.
Yes. The best piece of hockey memorabilia you have in your house is what?
Best piece of hockey memorabilia. Well, I have my plaque from the Hockey Hall of Fame.
That's nice.
But that's pretty subjective. I have for my 60th birthday, I had by that point my 65th birthday. I had by that point had presented the cup, I don't know, over 20 times, and a montage was made up by Coley Campbell in the hockey operations department of each of the pictures of me doing that. Because the best thing I get to do is present the Stanley Cup.
I give you credit. You know you're getting booed, but you still love taking that trophy out there.
When do I get booed?
Yeah.
When did that happen? You know what? If as long as they're not quiet, it's a good thing. There's emotion, there's passion, and hockey fans are the best.
Hey, but you know what? If you don't have fans this year, Commissioner, you won't get booed.
I'd rather get booed.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. You know what? We can pipe it in. How's that?
We may do that.
Commissioner, thank you for joining us. Good luck with the proposal and the format. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I hope you, your family, all of your colleagues, and all your viewers and listeners stay safe.
Thank you. That's the Commissioner of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman.